Keek on the mic, keek on the mic. Keek on the mic, keek on the mic. People, this the intro. Sacramento, California, born and raised. And Antelope is where I spend most of my days. Talk bad about my team, you must be a clown. This is Keek on the mic, so you know you better bear down. Bear down.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. Like always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. So, really interesting topic here on Keek on the Mic, as the report out of Chicago is this. NFL executive believes Ryan Poles chose the Bears because of Justin Fields. And I know a lot of people are going to sit here and say, well, Keek, now you're kind of contradicting yourself. And this is the reason why I wanted to come on here and do today's topic and talk about this today on Keek on the Mic, as I wanted to clear the air a little bit in this video. Obviously, last week I talked about what Colin Cowherd said and how he has been hearing that the new Bears regimen is not sold on Justin Fields. But something that I didn't mention in that podcast, though, is how you have to take what Colin Cowherd or any of these analysts say with a grain of salt. And most of the time, you know, I don't want to freak you guys out when I do these reports, but most of the time, these are just articles that I read, and then I just react to them. I give my opinions. These are not things that, you know, just come on top of my head. These are things that I react to, the articles that I hear, right? But I know personally I can probably do a better job of not overreacting to what I hear from some of these experts and analysts, much like Colin Cowherd. Obviously, like I mentioned, you have to take things, what these analysts say, with a grain of salt, especially a guy like Colin Cowherd. Now that I really think about it, right? This is a guy that supported Matt Nagy and defended him even through his mistakes. So, obviously, most of the time, if not all the time, Cowherd is just speaking nonsense. So, today's podcast is basically just to clear the air and reinstate my claim that this Bears regimen is in fact all in on Justin Fields. And I just want you guys know as well, is that I do read all your comments. When I say comment down below in the comment section, right? That is me trying to interact with you guys. And trust me, I read every single one. And most of the time you can see that I leave a little heart on most of your guys' comments. That is me listening to what you got to say, respecting your guys' opinion, and I take it not with the grain of salt, but I take it wholeheartedly, your guys' opinions on the Chicago Bears. And trust me, I definitely listen. And after reading some of your guys' comments, and a lot of you guys made a whole lot of sense, and it really allowed me to take a step back and think about this, is why would Ryan Poles accept the job if he wasn't all in on Justin Fields? And that is what most of you guys commented down below on the Colin Cowherd video last week. And that's a fair question. Why would Ryan Poles take the job if he wasn't all in? And that's what really allowed me to take a step back and say, you know what? All these ESPN analysts, like Colin Cowherd or Keyshawn Johnson, they really just need to shut the hell up. They don't know what's going on behind closed doors unless you have a really close connection. And that's another thing. How much of a connection does Colin Cowherd actually have with the Chicago Bears? So most of the time, these ESPN analysts or these experts are just speaking plain nonsense. So what I want to talk to you guys about today, obviously, is that one NFL executive believes that Ryan Poles chose the Bears because of Justin Fields. And this is going to help me reinstate my claim that the Chicago Bears regimen are in fact all in on Justin Fields. If you guys don't know who Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog is, he's a big Bears Twitter guy, right? He gives his takes, his opinions on the Chicago Bears. And this is a guy that I trust, right? He has a lot of good sources within Hallis Hall for years. So when he comes out with something, I truly believe all the sources that he has. So Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog spoke to one NFL executive, and he thinks that Poles wouldn't have taken the job if he didn't think the young QB could have the potential to be great. This is what this NFL executive had to say. They will evaluate Fields like they would any young player, and that evaluation started the second they walked into the building. Ryan could have taken the Minnesota job, convinced them to move on from Kirk, which wouldn't have been that hard, and drafted his own QB next year in a great quarterback class. He didn't. He thinks Fields can be his guy. I agree with him. but he has the luxury of being able to move on from Fields too. So obviously I want to start off with that last part, and I do agree with this NFL executive statement, right? But one thing I want to start off with is he has the luxury of being able to move on from Fields too. That's something that we talked about in that Colin Cowherd video, right? And that's the one thing that I can say about Colin Cowherd that was most likely right, is that this regimen did not draft Fields. Yes, obviously, he chose to come here. That means he definitely believes in Justin Fields, right? But he still didn't draft Justin Fields, which means if Justin Fields doesn't progress, continues to struggle, I truly feel that not only will the coaching staff be gone, but Justin Fields will be gone as well. But the point about the Vikings job, about Ryan Poles, he could have easily taken the Vikings jobs where Kirk Cousins only has one more year left on his contract. They could have got rid of Kirk Cousins, right? And then he could have had the choice to choose his own quarterback in a very good quarterback draft class next year in the NFL draft. But he didn't. He chose the Chicago Bears job. He didn't prioritize the Vikings job. He decided to come to Chicago, and that shows a lot. And not only the McCaskies being able to reel in this guy from a very, very competitive market, right, where he had the Vikings on him, we were in on him. I think there was a couple other teams in on Ryan Poles, but that also shows that Ryan Poles has a lot of belief in not only the Chicago Bears team, but Justin Fields. Trust me, that makes a lot of sense. He wouldn't have come to Chicago if he wasn't all in. And that's why I really appreciate you guys commenting and really opening up my eyes a little bit, because a lot of you guys commented that on last week's video on Colin Cowherd of why would Ryan Poles even bother coming here? Why would Matt Eberflus even bother coming to Chicago if they weren't all in on Justin Fields? And what this NFL executive had to say makes a whole lot of sense. If Ryan Poles wasn't all in on Justin Fields, he would have prioritized the Minnesota Vikings job, and he would probably be the Minnesota Vikings GM right now. So this makes a whole lot of sense. And Ryan Poles, and this is something that we talked about a lot, Ryan Poles will continue to build this roster. And this is something that a lot of Bears fans and a lot of the outside media have had a problem with Ryan Poles. If he's all in on Justin Fields, why isn't he building around him? And this is something that I really had to take a step back and really think about myself. Why isn't he doing a lot? It's because the resources, and that's something that I've talked about a lot on this podcast. It's the resources that he has. He didn't have a lot of money, right? He was dealing with players that were on the older scale with large contracts, trying to get rid of them. So we are definitely in a building phase. And I think a lot of logical Bears fans can agree with me when I say that. We are in a building phase for this football team. And Ryan Poles will continue to build. He's already started the rebuild. And I know the moves that he's made don't seem flashy, but the money is not in 2022. The money is in 2023, right? We had a lot of dead cap because of the players that had those large contracts that we got rid of. So the dead cap hits us this year, but next year, that's when the money spreads out for us. So Ryan Poles will continue to build this roster around Justin Fields. And then the 2022 season will basically be about steady progress for Justin Fields. And that's what Ryan Poles wants to see. I think, once again, I'll repeat it. I think Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus know that Justin Fields is the guy. They just want to see that steady progress, which would allow them, which will allow him to give him enough time to continue to build a roster around Justin Fields. And obviously, Ryan Poles wants to see his young quarterback make strides, and if Fields can show those strides this season, that will make Ryan Poles really happy. Because once again, if Justin Fields comes out and just tears it up, and yeah, he makes a little progression, but maybe he makes a huge progression, right? Maybe he makes that huge stride, that big year 1 to year 2 leap that most Bears fans are confident about in Justin Fields this year. That will make Ryan Poles really happy, because as when the money comes in 2023, that's when Poles can get started on the real work of building this roster for Justin Fields. So I'm just going to say this once again. I am all in on Justin Fields, and I want you guys to know that firsthand. Just because I posted that video on Colin Cowherd, that was just me just reacting to what these analysts have to say. And I know I have to be better on that. I need to stop overreacting to what these analysts have to say, but I think most of the time the reason why I post those videos because I want to get your guys' reactions as well, just so we can kind of debate and discuss and basically try to bash these different analysts and these experts that have so much to say on the Chicago Bears. But I think Justin Fields will be fine. I truly believe that Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are all in on Justin Fields. They wouldn't be here if they weren't. And I think as Bears fans, we should be excited because if Justin Fields just makes those steady strides, once the money comes in 2023, I think that's when you're going to see a lot of flashy moves from Ryan Poles. And we're really going to start seeing him really build this roster around Justin Fields. And that will reinstate the claim that Ryan Poles is all in on Justin Fields. So how do you guys feel about what the NFL executive had to say on Justin Fields' situation? Let me know down below in the comment section. I loved to hear from you guys. But before I let you guys go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms. Make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, I'll be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the